I'm Josh Ryan, and it looks like there's something missing on set here.
Looks to me like a better, younger version of Lance Phillips, maybe, with a better tan, maybe.
This is Chris King, by the way.
How's it going, guys?
Yeah, this is a first time for the show.
First time. I'm an absolute rookie, so hopefully you pick me up here, and well, I can probably fill Lance's chair pretty easily, I think. So
yeah, of course.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's not big shoes to fill at all, not even remotely. Welcome to The Gloves Are Off, folks. I'm Josh Ryan, again, joined by our guest co-host, Chris King, filling in for Lance Phillips today. Lance is off in Vancouver enjoying some sun and enjoying being engaged, so congratulations to him.
Hey, I didn't even know about that news, so we'll have
really?
We'll have
this
to have the party
breaking
when
news.
He comes back. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed, actually, that I wasn't filled in on this.
Well, I guess we should have covered that in the pre-show meeting. Yes, Lance Phillips is engaged and enjoying that time off. He's deserved that time off for a while, but planning on having a lot of fun this show. Should be a good time.
I'm excited.
Yeah, and we're going to start the show local, as we always do, and that is, of course, with some Chucks, the CPCA, another series going on in Little Pine. Jamie Labicane coming out of that, the winner, but closely followed by Chris Molly and Wayne Knight, who remain ahead of him in the standings. Do you think, Chris, that there's a chance that Labicane can make up the ground yet this season?
Just looking at the standings here, I think he's so far back right now. I think, you know, a few more good showings will put him in the running in the top three, but Knight's been consistent every time out, and it just looks like he's really not going to be catched unless Molly has a few great runs here down the home stretch.
That makes sense. I mean, you look at the standings right now, Wayne Knight sitting at 653 points, you know, almost 10 points ahead of Chris Molly in second, and nearly 100 points ahead of guys like BJ Carey in fifth place, Jamie Labicane in fourth. You said it, consistency absolutely is the big thing. Wayne Knight throughout the season has been amongst the top 2 or 3 finishes, and Labicane's kind of coming on strong here at the end. But definitely, you see that with any sport, but races especially, consistency and not taking penalties is the big thing.
Yeah, and when you look at those scorecards, the zeros are the big factor, right? The zeros keep your time down, and Knight's always within a second of the winner, it seems like, in almost every event. So as long as you're running clean, I think it's going to be really tough to catch Knight down the home stretch here. Yeah,
and you see that in this last result, Wayne Knight finishing with a 3:40.74, Labicane's winning time 3:39.01. So as you said, right within that winning time, and again, it's kind of a seasonal average for Wayne Knight. BJ Carey, who was in the top 4, having a little bit of a drop off here in the last event, going 3:44.47 for 8th place. So definitely not a great result for him.
So how many events do we have left for the catch-up to happen? I guess that's the big question.
Which is, and so Meadow Lake Canada Cup coming up this weekend, then Frog Lake and Turtleford still to come before we here in Lloydminster host the CPCA finals, which we'll have plenty of coverage for, of course.
So there's still time for him to make it up.
Absolutely.
But he's got to run really consistently. Let's move on to Lakeland Heat here. They're at the Junior Provincials for lacrosse. First time making it into the finals. Really tough showing, losing 10-7 to the Lethbridge Barracudas. Just maybe, you know, it's really huge for lacrosse growing in this area, but also for our hometown Lloydminster team, knowing that, you know, we're really close to being in that provincial final as well.
That's absolutely true. I mean, we covered it a week ago on the show, how the Lloydminster Extreme were basically 10 minutes away from going to the next round of the postseason, losing 2-0 in that 10-minute extra tiebreaker game that they needed over in Bonnyville. And I know it's probably tough for the Lloydminster Extreme looking at this weekend, knowing we had this team on the ropes, we had the momentum, and they went on to finish in the final and almost win the provincial final. But they also, at the same time, probably have to look at it going, we lost to a team that went all the way, so that means going forward, they have to feel comfortable about their chances next year.
Yeah, and as a coach, there's a little justice in knowing that you lost to a team that's going to be in the provincial finals. I think it builds their program, builds it in the area, saying, this is what we need to do to get better. The teams in our region are getting better, and we're showing well at provincials, so now how do we continue to grow it within the community, within our own organization is the big thing.
Yeah, and you want to extend that obviously to the rest of the region. Lakeland Heat, that's their first silver medal rather in junior lacrosse. So that's quite the accomplishment for them, which, as you said, kind of continues the narrative of how much this sport has grown. I've only kind of recently gotten into lacrosse. It's quite a physical sport, but I got to say it's caught on with people in Lloydminster who generally like physical sports, like hockey and such.
Yeah, very enjoyable because it seems like at any time someone can get took out, but there is a lot of skill involved with it too in terms of the passing and the finesse, and the spacing is very similar to major sports like soccer and basketball. So exciting for our local area, and hopefully we can continue to move on and get better I want to see a provincial championship here in Lloydminster.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some events hosted a year ago, which was nice to see at the youth level, but seeing that junior team make that next step will certainly be something that will help boost the events and the sport in the region. A couple of baseball events coming up, obviously. One just finished up, the Prairie Pirates midget boys playing in the AA tournament after finishing on the lower end of the AAA side. And as a result, they didn't have much of a tough go at AA, winning by more than double digits in the championship game. So not much of a challenge for them, really, Chris.
No, they kind of walked through, and the team they played in the final, the Parkland Expos, were also a AAA team. So the way it works in the Saskatchewan AAA League is the top 8 teams make the AAA provincials. The rest of them are relegated down the bottom 3. So the Pirates, unfortunately, got relegated down to AA. They did end up winning. Anytime you can win a provincial championship, it's exciting. Hopefully the boys, they had an 8-22 record this year. I think they'll look to improve on that next year and be in the midget AAA provincial championships, which is where you want to be, because if you win that, you're going to nationals, you're getting to play against the best players in Canada. And I know that's the goal of the program, so hopefully they can continue to build that.
Yeah, I just don't understand why it has to be a situation where you have a team playing at the AAA level all year, end up playing at a AA level. Like, I don't understand from a competitive aspect why you structure your league province-wide that way, where you can allow a team to play top competition all year. Maybe they're getting their heads caved in, possibly, depending on the level of skill, and then jump down to a completely different level for one weekend. I just don't see the benefit in that for both the kids coming in that win that tournament, but certainly for the kids who are getting beaten.
Well, it kind of defeats the purpose of playing AAA when you end up having to go to AA provincials, right? And I think that's the whole goal of any AAA program is at this age, it's the end of the road for all those kids. So you want to play best on best. So I think it is a little odd that Baseball SAS structures their playoff provincials to kind of tier teams and say, okay, you know what, you're going to go to AA, because now all the AA teams that are good AA teams didn't even have a chance to win AA provincials and get a chance to move on to Western. So it is unfortunate, and hopefully they can look to change that in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like look at a AA-B, AA-A, and AA-B side of provincials or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, like split it or something,
Absolutely.
Tier it, bronze it, yeah. In other news, ACAC, major news today from the Alberta government that they're cutting major amounts of our Jimmy Condon scholarship. So for those that don't know, our Jimmy Condon scholarship is a huge piece what we can offer Alberta athletes when they come and play for us and attend post-secondary institutions. So the government's looking to cut this by 25%. You being an ACAC athlete, how did that affect you, and how's it going to affect all of our programs? Well,
25%, so you're already a smaller scholarship than what people usually think. People think that a lot of college athletes get full rides coming out of school. That's not the case. It's actually more of a third of your tuition, if anything, when you come the total amount. And sometimes there's additional scholarships on top of that. Certainly you would know that, having had international athletes play for you. But I think this is real hamper on a lot of promising young athletes who want a chance to go to school and play sports that maybe don't have enough money to pay for school by themselves. And for coaches, which I'm sure you're going to talk about in a second, how do you budget this now when you're essentially almost getting a quarter of your budget, your recruiting budget, completely slashed? And if you're already near what your budget is, this decision blows that out of proportion.
Well, and as a coach, we're in a really weird spot right now. We used to get $1,800 per athlete for Jimmy Condon. Now there's talks of it going down to $1,500 or slashing scholarships straight up. So if I could offer 10 kids that scholarship and now they took it away, I'm in no man's land. I got to honor those. And as you said, I'm now going to have to fundraise. But a lot of the kids that you get in post-secondary athletics don't have the funds to go to college and pay on their own. So that is a huge piece of the puzzle, especially here at Lakeland. We're in the middle of 2 major centers. So we need a reason to draw the athletes here, especially from Alberta. So unfortunate news, and hopefully the government will rethink this and kind of go back on it and continue to put money into athletics. Because if you look, those students end up being more successful than the regular students that aren't involved in athletics in terms of school percentages. And it also, I mean, you look at a school like Augustana where I competed, student athletes are a huge chunk of that student population and a huge part of the general PR of the school in the community. Yeah. So if you take away a chunk of the student athletics in total, because once you take away full scholarships, once you totally take away scholarships, that is going to significantly reduce the amount of athletic teams you have and the athletes you can bring into your school. Now you're taking away students in general, which is taking away revenue from the institution. And I know we've talked a lot about providing more opportunity for people to go to college.
now you're not just taking away opportunities for athletics, you're taking away opportunities for students to get an education, which I think is just as problematic.
Yeah, and that's the bottom line. We're all going to suffer from that. So hopefully that's something that gets reversed, and hopefully all the institutions figure out a way to make up that cost.
Yeah, and something that probably won't be reversed is the relationship between Kyrie Irving and LeBron James. Those who've been following basketball might have heard over this past weekend that Kyrie Irving wants out of Cleveland, which would shake up that Cavalier dynasty and possibly shape the scope of the NBA, minus, of course, the Golden State Warriors are going to win the title. What does this mean for other teams, Chris, as a basketball guy? But more specifically, what does this mean for the Raptors now?
Well, I'm happy for Kyrie, because then he won't have to play with LeBron, who I hate watching LeBron. He's one of my least favorite players. And
wow.
And my kids all love him.
Hot take of the day.
Yeah, it's tough.
Take.
It's real tough. But really good news for the Raptors, because essentially, if you look at it, if Kyrie's leaving, LeBron's leaving next year. Unfortunately, he's going to become a Laker. I'll have to stop cheering for the Lakers then. But it leaves the Eastern Conference wide open.
Yes.
You have Boston, you have Toronto. So I think if Toronto makes a move or two this year, you might not see them in the Eastern Conference Finals this year, but I think for the next 2 or 3 years, they got a shot. And anytime you can get to a championship final, I think you have to take that while it's there. If you look at some of the other teams that have took that shot, it's worth it.
Yeah, I generally agree with you, although I'm not quite as ardent a hater of LeBron James. I have my problems here and there with him.
You should be.
I have my problems here and there with him, but he's still a great player. I do think this is great for the Raptors. I mean, most people were criticizing many of their moves this summer. You overpaid Kyle Lowry, you overpaid Serge Ibaka. A lot of people didn't want to see fan favorite Corey Joseph leave. Felt like the bench had kind of lost some of its depth. Now those moves actually look great in retrospect, because without Kyrie, because the Cavs are talking about maybe Derrick Rose as a replacement, and I don't know why anyone would do that. But
I could play better than Derrick Rose right now.
I'm
saying.
The numbers would show that he would be a better point guard in the NBA than
I would
Derrick
pass
Rose
the
right
ball
now.
to someone.
Yes. And now again, I look at it now where this team is flawed, but certainly have some of the key pieces needed to make a run in the Eastern Conference. And I'm not convinced that the Celtics are this great team yet. I think they've gotten away with maximizing their own talent. Now you have a chance to see Toronto go past that second, third round with a Cleveland team that's just going to have LeBron and Kevin Love. And
then no LeBron. Boston's good. Don't get it wrong. Boston's good. Let's talk about Canada's team.
Okay.
Canada's team, that being the Toronto Blue Jays.
Right.
And you can hear people jumping off the bandwagon right now. Most of the Blue Jays fans are saying, what's going on with this franchise? And I've been saying it all year. It's time to make trades. It's time to not fully rebuild, but you need to get some pieces in the shed. And they're struggling right now because they're holding on to all this old talent that's declining, but yet they're not in the playoff run. What do you think is going to happen right now with the Blue Jays? Because I'm very strong opinion. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, we'll see how much we defer. I think maybe some people are going a little overboard on dealing the whole table. I mean, everyone wants Bautista out of here, let's be honest. Yeah. I know he's this all-time great player in the history of the franchise, but he can't field, he can barely hit. And did I mention he can't field? So let's get him out of town. Donaldson is the tough one for me because I still think he has a lot of really good years left, but he also is a significant pay increase once they have to re-sign him. And there's a chance he may not want to play in Toronto from what people are saying. So that's a tough one for the club. The thing is, I still think there's enough talent here, especially with their starting rotation, that if you make 1 or 2 moves now, you could reload for next season. So I don't want them to essentially blow things up and deal all of their old pieces, because you need some veteran leadership. Yeah. If you can keep Donaldson, I like that idea. But maybe a J. Happ, maybe a Bautista, and maybe some of their other problematic pieces. I still like this team going forward if they can reload for next year.
And I hate the idea of keeping Donaldson. I think he's your biggest trade asset right now. So if you can move him and get a bunch of prospects in high AAA or quadruple A ready for the show, I think that's what you have to do. I also just had to write down that you called Joey Bautista an all-time great Blue Jay, and I don't know how I feel about that.
He's one of the all-time leaders in home runs, RBIs. He hit that home run that won us the Texas Ranger series. That moment will live on forever.
That was a huge moment, but it's circled. I'm writing it down. Today's the day. Joey Bats, all-time great.
Wow, you heard it from Chris King first. Coming up next on The Gloves Are Off, we have Aaron Rawlake, someone Chris is familiar with, in studio.
We're back. You can keep your gloves on, but ours are off.
Welcome back, folks. The gloves are off. Chris King back with me. I'm Josh Ryan. And special guest today, another Lakeland alum, Aaron Rawlake in town.
An ancient Lakeland alum.
We like to keep it in the family here with Lakeland.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And Chris, you're very familiar with Aaron.
Yeah, I think Aaron actually hired me. He did the interview process and put me over the coals when I got hired.
I actually did hire you, yeah. That year, brought yourself on and Austin Dyer from the women's volleyball team. So it was a big year. That was my first year as well. So we all kind of vaulted in together, and here we are now.
10 years later on TV. Who would have known?
Really
and before we go any farther, we haven't done our traditional handshake yet. So very nice to have you.
Nice to see you again. Kinger as always.
And
So let's talk a little about Lakeland since we're both really familiar with it. Kind of talk about where you've seen Lakeland. You've been involved since, I want to say, 90s?
94.
And how have you seen that kind of evolve since you were a player and then kind of as the admin and now as a community member?
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, 1994 I came to Lakeland to play volleyball, and of course it was based on the Vermilion campus, and there's really three sports. I mean, curling's been there, it's always been there. Volleyball had been around for 15, 16 years at the time, and of course the Lakeland College rodeo team, and that's really all it was. I mean, the old Vermilion campus, when we played there, was packed to the gills. I mean, 100 people would more than fill the place past fire code. And then as it changed through, I actually, when I graduated out, I ended up a couple of years later coaching the women's volleyball team, and that kind of continued. And I left that when my wife and I started to have kids that took up a lot of our time, and still do. I kind of stepped back and watched the program grow, and then of course now the transition with what I'll call the core sports in Lloydminster, volleyball, basketball, and of course the onset of soccer. When I came on in 2007, that was one of the first things I was told was, let's grow the program. Our president at the time was really excited to add a sport, and soccer was the natural fit. So, it's really kind of snowballed into what I guess, fans see it as today, based off the Lloydminster campus. Of course, rodeo and curling have stayed in Vermilion, but our core sports being here in Lloydminster is a nice thing to see how it's evolved.
Yeah, and now you've seen obviously a national championship in the past year, and certainly more programs than ever since, as you said, there were only a couple programs at the start of that. What's been the biggest reason for such the transformation? Just time, or just the amount of effort put in?
A commitment from the board through the leadership. I know when I was there, we went through a couple leadership changes right from the top down, talking presidential and down. But we managed to stay consistent. A lot of that's credit. The one thing that's stayed consistent with the program really since I've been involved has been Alan Rogan, the athletic director, and of course finally named Canadian College's Athletic Director of the Year. He's been the consistent piece. I mean, he's surrounded himself with good people. He'll tell you that. I mean, when I came in, it was there to do specific tasks and make things happen. And with his support, we managed to pull that off. But a big thing has been the scholarships. The scholarships that have been made available to the student athletes that come to Lakeland College is probably the number one thing that keeps the programs alive. I mean, it's not going to happen unless you have the athletes first, and then consistency in coaching. Chris said he's been there 10 years. Men's volleyball coach Taylor has been there now for 5. Sheree, who was of course under Tom Grote, who was under Phil Allen. There's been consistency in that program. It's built its way up, and then of course Austin been there for a decade as well. I mean, that we learned that early on, Alan and I, that consistency builds programs, and we got the funding and we've stayed consistent, and now we're starting to really see the success of it across the board.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and not only that, I think one of the things you talk about, Austin and Taylor on the volleyball side, and you being a volleyball guy, is the growth of our club volleyball program here in the community, but also across Western Canada. Just maybe touch on that a little bit about how volleyball's really blown up in this area especially.
Well, and our area here, I still look at it as we're in our infancy. We haven't been producing the players yet, but we're about to. Now that we're really in kind of the 4th or 5th year of our full-on club volleyball, or our Rustlers Volleyball Club program, now we're going to start to see these local kids get on to CCAA and CIS teams, whether it's at Lakeland or somewhere else. And we tell them, if you don't want to go to Lakeland, great, we'll help you find another place to play.
But they should go to Lakeland.
Oh, for sure they should go to Lakeland, yeah. but we need to have them at that level. We have a national championship team here, but right now we don't have, for example, in my mind, a girl coming out of the U18 program that could compete on that Rustlers college volleyball team. We're not there yet, but with our U16s, our U17s that are coming, we will have girls, specifically girls that will be able to play for Austin. And that's the ultimate goal, was to create players for the Lakeland College Rustlers.
Yeah, and you've obviously now got to see that from a different perspective. You're a parent as well. What's it like viewing the club sport from that lens?
It's horrible. It's completely, you know what, for me being a volleyball guy, I damn near bite my tongue off all the time. I sweat, I shake my head. I try not to get up and down my own daughter about what is happening with her on the court. This past year was the first year I've turned her loose from dad coaching. Had a couple coaches come in that were just awesome, and to see her growth, and part of that's maturity now that she's 16, but to see her make her own decisions and go and not rely on dad. And what I found more is now she's coming to me to ask me about the game, to talk about specifics, to watch videotape and let me kind of tear her down and fix her back up a little bit. And it helps that I'm on the same page with her coaches. They've been very upfront. And she also understands she can't just rely on dad. And she's been a little blessed where she's got some other avenues to go to. I mean, with dad's connections, she's got guys like Austin and Taylor to talk to, and as well as access to just about all of Austin's players. So, I mean, she's one of the lucky ones for sure.
Are you hoping to see her in a Lakeland Rustlers uniform?
I'll tell you what, we were at Nationals this year, and it's the second CIS coach that has introduced himself to her, and she looked them both dead in the eye and told them both that she's going to play for Austin at Lakeland College.
Wow.
So that's her goal and her dream, and I don't know if she's quite there yet. That's going to be Austin's decision and his alone, but she's, I love the fact that she wants to be a Rustler because she knew dad played there, dad coached there. She's grown up. She was 6 years old when Austin moved here and stayed at our house for a few days. So, I mean, that's the only place she wants to be.
I think that's been a big change within Lakeland, is now that the sports have shifted to Lloyd. That was 03 when I think everything shifted over. Now all these Lloyd kids that play junior high volleyball and basketball and soccer are seeing competitive athletes at that level in town all the time, not only like in our gym, but they see them in the community doing stuff. And I think that's really affecting the younger generation and hopefully encourages them to be part of, whether it's our program or other CCAA programs, be part of that mentality.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to expose them to the level of play, it makes them realize that there's something to shoot for and strive for. And we talk to our club athletes as, hey, this is what you can get for scholarships and things. I mean my daughter will get into college, but she's probably not going to get a pile of academic scholarships. So I mean, any athletic scholarship, believe me, as a parent looking at what it costs to go to school, I'm completely excited about that. But right from the soccer program, I look at the number of young soccer players locally that have played for the Rustlers. I mean, it's awesome and had success playing for that. I mean, Kevin's done a great job, Coach Kevin Wagner, of putting the community as part of the program, tying it all together, and it's become more successful. And it's always nice to see. When I was at Lakeland, it was even nice to see. I remember Grand Prairie coming to town with a local girl on the team, and you know what? Yeah, we're not going to cheer for Grand Prairie, but you wanted that local kid to do well, even if it was against us. I always comb through the rosters and look and keep an eye on those local kids. I don't care where they go. You just want to see them do well and have a good experience.
Yeah, we'll switch gears just a little bit. You've also kind of joined the officiating ranks recently, having done lines for a lot of Lakeland games. I'm sure as a former player and coach, then that is a different perspective. Do you find you understand that a little bit better now, having gone through that? And have you changed when let's say controversy happens, you don't find yourself automatically siding with the team or the coach in that situation?
Well, you know what? The viewpoint is so different. That was the first thing that struck me, whether I was up on the stand or down on the lines, is things are at such a different view. And I kind of giggle now, especially when I'm standing on the lines. You get a chance to kind of see the coach out of the corner of your eye, and all of a sudden they're losing their mind about a call. And It's like, well, there's no way you could have seen that. You know, and sometimes, and I mean, Chris knows this, sometimes as a coach, you need to argue just to argue, to prove your point. I mean, Chris has become quite good at arguing to not really make a point for now, but to prove a point for later. Yeah, it's a different perspective. Volleyball is an extremely hard game to officiate. I mean, to me, it's a harder game to officiate than basketball. Basketball, and Chris probably disagree with me, but basketball, you can let them be physical. But again, any old officiating thing always comes back to consistency. I mean, you know, and Chris will, I'm sure, comment to this. He'll let them play basically a game of rugby as long as they're playing a game of rugby on both sides.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with the officiating is everything's got to be equal on both sides, and it's really hard to be consistent. I think the ref development has been a lot better, not only in volleyball, but basketball and all sports, and yourself going through, doing all your courses and stuff. I think that's the big thing they're preaching now is that consistency so that they can move people on to the higher levels. And we're seeing it in our sport, we're seeing it in volleyball as well.
Yeah, it's you know, in volleyball, I never quite understood it, talking with Austin a lot over the years about swings, and I know, Josh, you played at a high level, and understanding the swing of the game and how much power a volleyball referee actually has. It doesn't seem like it, but I mean, you make a call at 10-8 that swings momentum and it's over. And that match is now over because of a call that you made half an hour before. It's scary.
Absolutely.
Scary.
So to end this, what are you doing the rest of the summer? What's on the schedule before we see you back on the lines?
Nothing. You know what? It's some downtime for my kids right now. My daughter will start volleyball camps. Son will go to basketball camps. Really all through August. So hauling my daughter to a few camps. Really, it's some off-season training now. Now that she's 16, we've got her on a weight program and things. So Dad doesn't oversee the program. I actually go with her. So I mean, that's I've really enjoyed that about my kids getting older, is we can do that kind of stuff together. I mean, fitness is a big part of my family's life, so it's nice to spend that time with them, get them up at the lake. They don't need to be full year-round athletes. They need to enjoy themselves, so we're enjoying that time, but looking forward to September, the start of the high school season for my daughter. My son will start playing basketball shortly thereafter, so you know, we're looking forward to that. And then, you know, probably show up on the lines a little bit at Lakeland, and as well as get out. You know, I like going out and still seeing the soccer team play once or twice. And then, of course, I always enjoy watching Chris go nuts on the sidelines at the odd basketball game.
As do I. I look forward to seeing that again. And I look forward to seeing you more as well in the future once that season gets up. Aaron Rawlake with us, folks. Thanks so much for coming in.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime.
Thanks,
and coming up on The Gloves Are Off, we got plenty of tweets from our Twitter bird, Albert.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, should be fun.
We're back, and the gloves are still off.
Welcome back to The Gloves Are Off, folks. Josh back here with Chris. That was a great interview, I thought, with Aaron Rawlake. I really enjoyed his insight a little bit, just the impact that college athletes have on the kids in the community, too.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think the kids forget about, you know, when they're in the moment, where us coaches and community members see how it really affects a wide area of people.
Absolutely. And this is the first time you've met Albert, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, Albert's got some good safety glasses on there.
Yeah, those are, he's actually borrowing my safety glasses. Lance stole his sunglasses for the trip to Vancouver, so I had to fill in with something. So I will start off our Twitter segment. This is, again, your first voyage here. It should be a fun one. So we're going to start with @NBA on TNT. The 2017 NBA offseason reads like a tabloid. And as you can see here, have they split? No secret to my feeling 25 at 39 with Manu Ginobili, Magic and Zoe's summer romance, and why our second fling will be better than the first. That's, of course, Jimmy Butler and Tom Thibodeau. I mean, that's classic soap opera right there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, I'll buy an issue of that magazine right on the spot.
Yeah, me too.
There's a lot going on in the NBA, and it's an interesting time of year, especially with the teams reloading and revamping here.
Absolutely. What's your favorite gossipy storyline so far this season?
I would say I'm probably a big fan of Draymond getting in fights with everyone over Twitter and just causing beef for no reason. I think he just likes the attention.
Yeah, I think he picked someone a little bit above his level in Conor McGregor, though.
Yeah, once again, why wouldn't you? Most followers, so
Yeah.
it gets you interest.
Fair enough. So now that is your turn.
All right.
Go ahead and yank the first.
Let's see what we got here. Okay, so we got from at CFL. If it was 1937, tonight's hashtag CFL game at McMahon Stadium would be between the Regina Rough Riders and the Calgary Bronx. Canada, 150 years. That's a gorgeous shot, too, by the way.
Yeah, it is a great shot. I'm not going to lie, even though I'm from Calgary area originally, so I'm kind of a Stamps fan. I'm a passive CFL fan, kind of a Stamps fan. I kind of like the name Bronx.
Yeah, it sounds tough.
Yeah, it just sounds like, I don't know, it fits football more to me. Although Stampeders, I mean, when you think of the definition, should be a good one. Are you a Riders fan yourself?
I am not a Riders fan, but I will say that I don't hear a lot from my Riders friends right now with the way the season's been going.
They don't have a lot to talk about right now, let's be honest.
You could call it the Calgary Broncos, Dinos, Rough Riders, Stampeders, whatever you want. They're going to beat the Rough Riders.
Yeah, probably. To the disappointment of thousands of fans at Mosaic Stadium. This is from ESPN, so don't count out Jordan Spieth. Hashtag photo of the night. And then you see him there. After winning the British Open, he was behind by several strokes, came back to win at the end by 3. Quite the comeback for Jordan Spieth. And I mean, with Tiger Woods essentially being gone from the public light now, it's great to see that he's been able to do that for golf, Jordan Spieth. He's
really carrying the torch right now. And if you watched any of that on the weekend, some of the shots he hit, that one from the rock mount was unbelievable to recover down the stretch. So I'm excited. Hopefully he stays healthy and we can see him for a long time.
Hey, there's mail.
Let's see what we got next here.
All right.
And we got at what he looks like. Ben McAdoo looks like everyday dad from America's Funniest Home Videos. Whoever's been hit with in the testicles with a wiffle ball bat. I can't even get that out because I'm looking at the picture. God, that's funny.
Because it's perfect. That is exactly what Ben McAdoo looks like. He looks like every single dad who's ever been on America's Home Videos who's been hit in the, you don't want to be hit there. It's perfect.
That's frameable right there.
Yeah. Ben McAdoo, to be honest, though, also looks like as if three kids who covered themselves up inside a suit to pretend to be an adult. Like he looks like so many things.
And maybe his mom cuts his haircut with a bowl, possibly?
Yeah, quite possibly. So now this is from at Barstool KSU, Barstool Kent. And this is where we're going to get on the theme of OJ. I know how much Chris doesn't want to talk about OJ. The Chiefs are already trying to make moves to sign OJ after his parole is granted. Bold. And as you can see there, one of the 4 members of that parole commissioner board he's wearing a Kansas City tie. Like he obviously did that on purpose because he knows he's going to be on national television.
Of course, yeah. Any chance you get to be on the media, you got to promote your brand, right?
I guess.
And as far as I'm concerned, OJ can stay out of the limelight right now.
Are you surprised that it was still had so much attention after all this time?
I'm not surprised, just with all the things that happened and obviously some of the things that didn't happen involving OJ.
Yeah.
It's interesting. He's such a polarizing figure because he was so big for so long.
Indeed.
All right, my turn here?
That is your turn.
So we got my favorite at Bill Simmons. LBJ, hold on, Magic. I got a call. Clicks. Hello? It's Dan Gilbert. Kyrie wants out. What do we do? LBJ, you handle it. Click. I'm back, Magic.
I wonder. I love Bill Simmons, but I wonder if that actually is a conversation that's happened.
The thing with Simmons is he has so many insiders in the business. That's something that could actually happen.
Yeah.
And Simmons seems to know that LeBron loves Magic, and that's probably going to happen. That's funny, but it could be happening
especially
right now.
with Kyrie. That's why I don't necessarily blame Kyrie for wanting to leave. This is for sure what's going to happen anyway. Especially with Kyrie gone, I think it's a done deal at this point. From at Not Sports Center, another one we've used multiple times. Breaking: the Cowboys signed new free agent running back O.J. Simpson. Jerry Jones, he's got exactly the kind of character we look for in a Dallas Cowboy. I mean, would you put it past Jerry Jones to do something of that nature? Probably not.
Yeah, and everyone likes to hate the Cowboys. My brother's a huge fan, but they would do it. They take questionable guys all the time.
Greg Hardy, they took Greg Hardy, a year ago?
And then they're shocked when it doesn't work.
Hey, there's mail.
Let's be honest, they're not the Pats. They don't turn guys around like that.
Well, they don't have Belichick, that's why.
Another OJ. Jeopardy Sports. Who is O.J. Simpson? This ex-NFL player being granted parole is the first time the Buffalo Bills have actually won something. That's a big-time burn, first off.
I believe I was supposed to say who is O.J. Simpson after that. But yeah, I mean, it's right. When have the Bills won at anything?
What is that, 4 finalists, right? 4 times in the Super Bowl, 4 losses, I believe?
Yeah. And we got one more OJ one for you. This is from @not_Tony Romo. OJ Simpson was sentenced to 33 years and got out of jail before the Eagles won a Super Bowl. I mean, you could throw the Bills in there. You could throw in a few different teams. So we'll rattle through a couple more quick here.
All right. And I got a repeat here. So we got to go to a new one.
Oh no.
I don't want to talk about Bill Simmons anymore. All right, we got Sports Illustrated @SI Now. Y'all need to get over it. Ray Allen fires back at bitter Celtics fans. Now, I don't know if you remember, but Allen did not leave on the best of terms with the Celtics.
No, he did not. Those Celtics did not like it.
No, and his teammates really haven't given up on that at all. But if you're leaving, you're leaving. You got to do what's best for you, I guess, and that's Ray Allen's motto.
Yeah, fair enough. Although it is funny that he deleted that post like 20 seconds after he posted it, which is too late. And we'll end you with this at what he looks like once again, and this one's perfect. Urban Meyer, football coach Urban Meyer, looks like the neighbor who every morning asks how you're doing, but immediately shuts the door on the Mercedes before you can answer. And I mean, look at that picture.
And you know what?
That is him.
All-time legend, but that fits him to a T right there for sure.
It does indeed. Coming up next, some bold predictions from a man, Chris.
If you can't score, you might as well drop the gloves.
And welcome back to The Gloves Are Off. Josh and Chris with you. And we're about to introduce you to a new segment, which we came up with coming up for the show. Bold predictions with Kinger.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
So I'm going to ask him a series of questions, and these predictions, A, must be bold, but B, must not be totally ridiculous. So we'll see how well you score on this particular segment.
I'm trying my best. We'll see what happens here.
Okay, so we're going to start with a local topic, which I'm sure everyone will enjoy. So coming up first, and if we had a drum roll, we'd have a drum roll, but we do not. The first question is, where will the Liners finish at this weekend's national championship?
All right, so we got 20 teams in this weekend starting for nationals. I'm going to say our Liners team is going to place in the top 10, which is pretty good at a national championship.
No, that's not enough love for the home team, man.
Top 10. Can I say playoffs, Elite 8? Does that work?
No, you need to say where are they going to finish with a medal. I'm just hoping at home.
I don't know. That national competition, BC and Ontario is going to be really strong. So it's going to come down to pitching. If our pitching's good, I think we'll have a shot. And in terms of that many teams, it's just kind of how you match up. You need to throw your pitchers at the right time, and win a couple games you shouldn't. So if they do that, they could easily be in the top 8 with a shot at a medal. If not, they'll probably be in the middle of the road pack.
Don't you believe that their home field advantage, though, will be that? Like they'll get a bit of a boost from having all the people there to cheer them on, maybe people chirping the other pitchers?
Yeah, I would think that's a big advantage. We played in a national championship at home, and it was so loud, it was actually a disadvantage. So you never know how that's going to work out, but I think the kids got to be excited playing at home. They practice there all the time, friends and family there. I'm excited to see it.
Okay, now we're going. You did okay. I'll give you like a B- on that one. We're going to go now to question number 2. This is related to the Jays. Will all of Jose Bautista, Josh Donaldson, and Jay Happ be on the Jays by the trade deadline? So
I guess the question has to be, do we have an intelligent GM or not?
Whoa,
before I can answer that question.
Okay, well, I'm going to say yes. We have an intelligent GM in Mark Shapiro. He's got a proven track record.
Okay, so if he's intelligent, all 3 need to go. You need to trade all your assets that are valuable and start reloading. There's some really good prospects that are down in AA and single A right now. We need some top-end prospects. Otherwise, you're going to watch these old 40-year-olds wither away, and it's going to be awful.
But Josh Donaldson is not an old 40-year-old. And you don't know those prospects are going to be good enough.
He's hitting .239 right now. He's a free agent next year, and he's not signing to Toronto. He's going to take the money somewhere else. Toronto isn't the best place for Major League Baseball players to play. You have different taxes. You could go somewhere like Florida, and ultimately, I hate to say it, Boston and the Yankees are always in play.
Yeah, that's...
Get something while you can. Get something while you can.
He's my favorite player, though.
I know.
I love Josh Donaldson.
I know.
He was on Vikings.
Yeah, and he looks like a Viking half the time.
He does indeed. Switching over to the NHL. Will the Pittsburgh Penguins be the first team since the New York Islanders' 4 Stanley Cup run in the 1980s to win 3 straight and be, I guess in a way, the first team in 20 or 30 years to have a legitimate, or what many people call a legitimate dynasty?
All right, so if I'm being bold on this, I'm going to say yes. They got a shot to do it. I think they can do it. I think they can be back in the finals. I think you're probably going to see like a Nashville team. Who knows? Maybe our Oilers are there in the finals.
Yeah. I know everyone loves McDavid, but like, come on, guys. There's still a lot of holes on this team.
They're getting better, but ultimately Pittsburgh's really good. And those core pieces have stayed there. They're able to add and subtract pieces as needed.
True.
And when you have a guy like Crosby, when you have a guy like Malkin, it gives you a shot every single night. And in a best of 7, skill usually comes out on top.
Fair enough. But they do have a lack of depth because they've lost a couple of key pieces. Obviously, don't have a backup for Matt Murray if he gets hurt this time. Do you think that'll affect them?
Most likely not. Most of the time it usually doesn't. They've been very lucky with Murray and Fleury having them both in the lineup. But people also said that about the Penguins this year, that they lacked depth from before, right? So you keep hearing the same song and dance. Ultimately, every NHL team's going to have flaws. When you have a hard cap, there's flaws. That's the way it is. So can you make up for that and win those tight games?
Yeah, I have a bonus question for you. Will Alex Ovechkin ever win a Stanley Cup? Because if the Pittsburgh Penguins keep winning, then I think this window is closed on the Capitals.
I think the window is closed. I think he's one of those guys, once again, I would trade. I think you could get a maximum value for him. And if you looked at that guy, he looks like he's 45. He's fully white. I think the Russian vodka is killing him. Like, he looks old. So I don't know how much is left in him. He can still score goals. But once again, if I'm a GM, trade him.
Okay, so Chris King thinks that Alex Ovechkin is a burgeoning alcoholic. Moving to question number 4. Will Draymond Green, of course Draymond Green from the Golden State Warriors, will his Twitter beef with Conor McGregor, which has been going on for a couple of days now, get him suspended by the NBA? Is he going to say something or do something that will get him suspended?
No, he can only get suspended for hitting people in the privates. That's the only thing he gets suspended for. His Twitter beef, he has it with lots of different guys, as I said before. I think it's a big marketing piece for him. And for Draymond, I think he's bored. I think it's off season and he needs something to get fired up about. So I think he's keeping himself entertained. There's no way the NBA is going to suspend him. I think it's going to be fine. Now,
I would be inclined to agree with you initially because he in fact showed pictures of his private parts to people and didn't get suspended for that.
Right.
But talking with Conor McGregor, who said some possibly racist things in his press conferences, you don't think there's a chance that Draymond's just going to go a little bit too overboard and Adam Silver will have to do some kind of crowd control there?
I don't think so. The NBA hasn't done a lot of that in the past, worrying about like the social media. I think NBA is probably a little more liberal than a lot of the other leagues. I think once this fight's over and Pacquiao hits him in the face 10,000 times, I think this beef with McGregor will be over because his boy, Mayweather, it'll be over, and then all of a sudden Draymond's back to season. So he's got to focus on playing basketball, basically.
Okay, that could be. We'll end with another local topic, and we'll have to go through this kind of quickly. Will more than 3 Lakeland Rustlers teams win an ACAC medal this year?
I'm going to say yes. I'd like to say all teams are going to win.
Okay.
Reality, probably not going to happen.
I love you, Kinger, but let's be easy.
I think our girls volleyball should have a good shot. Our futsal teams are usually in the mix for medals every year. Usually we have a curling team in the mix. I think our team will have a shot if we come around to it. Men's basketball. So I would say yes, over on the 3. I think we can at least get 3 medals this year, maybe more. You never know.
Do you have a lock, like 1% you believe this will happen?
100%. I think we're medaling in futsal, both girls and guys.
Okay, not a lock for women's volleyball.
I think women's volleyball is a lock. I just think so many teams are going to be out to get them. Our women's volleyball team should be the best in the province, hands down. So I think they got the big target right now. I think their battle is going to be against themselves all year.
Yeah, and I think that should be a fun battle to watch, but one that they'll win. And with that coming up, we still have What's Bugging You left on the Gloves Are Off.
We're back. You can keep your gloves on, but ours are off.
And one more time, welcome back to the Gloves Are Off. Josh and Chris, to finish things off, one that a segment we've started to do more often on the show. What's bugging you? It's Lance's favorite segment, that's for sure.
He gets fired up.
He does get fired up, but I've seen you get fired up as well. So I'm curious to see how fired up Chris does get over this last segment. So Chris, you're up first. Take it away.
All right. What's bugging me is the year-round trend in sports in the youth. it's been driving me nuts because as a youngster, all of us grew up playing all the sports: volleyball, basketball, hockey, baseball, soccer, golf. And now you're seeing this push from about 10 years old up to 18 where all kids are doing is one sport year round, whether that be soccer, volleyball, or basketball, even now baseball. I think what's happening is we're getting weaker athletes and kids that are just specialized. So we're seeing more injuries. We're seeing kids not be involved in school sports, and it's really affecting kind of the overall grade of athletes we get at a higher end. I think the best athletes that we see come out are ones that play all their sports growing up and learn how to space and how to read concepts, whether it be in hockey or soccer or basketball. So that's been a big pain in my butt as a college coach, but also now you're seeing things like Kevin Pillar and the Blue Jays doing a commercial about, he was an athlete first and a baseball player second. And I don't think you can state that enough, that all these athletes that end up making it into the NHL or the MLB were elite athletes in everything they did. They didn't just play baseball for 12 months a year for their whole life. They did everything else so their body took a break and they could stay alert on everything else that they did. So that's what's bugging me. I'm sure Josh probably feels the same way, or near maybe, but that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, and that's something I completely agree on. I grew up a multi-sport athlete myself, loved playing different sports in different seasons, although I would have played as much volleyball as I could have, obviously, growing up. And I saw that with some of the guys that weren't full-time athletes in the volleyball world, who just played club volleyball, didn't play soccer and other things, they actually ended up struggling later on, and the guys that, and their teams that had played soccer, did well. So I'm great in sync with you on that. What's bugging me this week is the hypocrisy, that's a good start, of NBA, NHL, NFL, professional sports fans in general over player salaries and player decisions. Yes, we all hate that Kevin Durant went to the Golden State Warriors because it screwed up the NBA parity structure, and now we know that they're going to win at least, 4 more championships over the next couple of years. But saying that the person is selfish is so hypocritical, because look at what you would do in that situation. He's a guy in a business trying to make the best living for himself. And that's not to say you can't criticize things Kevin Durant says or does, or things that LeBron James says or does. I certainly do. But why is it that people are so easy to take the side of the owner? In any other situation, you never see someone take the side of an employer. You're always going to see them being pro-employee, except when it comes to sports fans. Because at the end of the day, you say Kevin Durant is doing all this work to save money for his team. He's actually just saving money for his owner, not for his team's situation. They have all the guys they need. And I wish people would wake up and figure that out sometime when they start cheering for these various teams that they root for. It's always bugging me.
And I think that's an emotional decision by the fans, that they always sign with the GMs and stuff. So I think that's something, you got to take the emotion out of it.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's wave this. Go Liners. And thank you for joining us. This was fun, Chris.
Thanks so much.
Folks.